I feel alive.
Welcome to the ADVMoto podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Slayball, and in each episode, we choose a theme and talk with writers about that theme. And on this episode, the theme is passion. So to kick off 2021, I wanted to dig into why do we ride, and specifically passion and ADV, and where do those things connect and where do they intersect. So in today's episode, you get to meet two riders, Willem Avenant and David Knight. And both are rally riders. Willem is a tree doctor turned by day and rally rider by every other day that he's not being a tree doctor. And David Knight is a Dakar rally racer. And actually, you're going to get to hear from David from the actual Dakar, from the bivouac. Our co-managing editors, Kira and Justin, sent in video from Saudi Arabia, from Dakar, just for this episode, talking with David about his passion in riding motorcycles. So let's kick it off and let's meet Willem. So I'm here with Willem. Welcome to the podcast, Willem.
Thanks so much, man. It's an honor and a privilege to be on with you. It's really nice.
Yeah, so Willem's joining us from South Africa, and Willem is an arborist by trade, but a motorcycle rider with passion, I guess. So the theme of this episode is passion, and Willem was introduced to me by Egla, who you remember from a couple episodes back, and she said, you got to meet this guy. He's an arborist, but he does rally riding and loves rally riding, and so I'm stoked to have you on the podcast. First off, I always ask people, how did you get into riding motorcycles? What was your very first experience?
My very first experience was probably with it was with a Honda 50cc Express. I don't know how common they were in the US, but it was these little yellow mopeds, which wasn't a moped because it was just a pipe with two wheels, a two-stroke engine, and a three-speed automatic gearbox. Uh-huh. And my dad had one at university, and as soon as we got to the age where we could start being mobile, we started this thing up and we just abused it for years. Looking back now at something like maintenance, we never serviced it, we never changed the oil, we never changed the air filter, we just rode this thing. And it just never broke. 4 years. And I think so where I live in a very rural area. I would say that the scenery is very similar to Arizona, so it's scrubland kind of, mm-hmm. But we have freedom. So as a kid of 4, 5, 6, you can go out and you can just ride. And for us, we literally got lost. We would go for days on end just riding or hiking or walking, but having that freedom. And at first it was a walking, and then when we got the bikes, we were able to explore, on the bike, so your reach got much bigger. So then a friend of mine also, his dad got one, so the two of us kind of joined up. And that was kind of my introduction to riding. After that, I started wanting a real bike, something with gears and shocks. But that was the seed that started it all, I would say.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of cool, to dive into, everybody kind of look at it as an origin story, right? Everyone kind of has an origin story of what maybe the bug that bit them or planted the seed, to what came in later in life. Yeah. So
yeah, I would say sorry to interrupt there, no. But I would say with that, or coupled with that, I think especially at a younger age, the memory of actually watching Dakar. So for us in South Africa, we have very little motorsport. We have a motorsport history, but it's not as big as it is in the US, and mm-hmm. with very let's say a limited motorsport calendar. The Dakar was one of those things where you look forward to it the whole year, and then you get a small segment on TV every night. And I remember, because it was at the time of me starting to ride, and it would come out late at night, and I was allowed to stay up and watch Dakar because it was Dakar. That was the thing. So I grew up watching Dakar with my dad, And that really, I think, that was the crossover between, or the cross-pollination between bikes and bike riding and rally riding, because it was always like, that's the type of riding I want to do one day.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get there, but that was always the goal. That was always why I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Well, what does rally riding mean to you? What would you say?
Look, for long, it was just something I wanted to do. So, as we all carry on in life, our life carries on, and you always have this list of things you wanted to do. So, after that 50cc Express, I always had bikes. Bikes has been a part of my life. Rally as such, maybe not so much. And then I woke up around about Dakar time. So everybody at the beginning of the year is ready to go rallying because it's Dakar. And that year, I just realized that, look, if I want to get to Dakar one day, I need to start, because if you're not in an environment, you're never going to get there. You're going to die wanting to go to Dakar. So that year, I just put my foot down. I searched pretty much for a whole year for a rally bike, which, again, being in South Africa is actually quite hard to find, because we don't have access to navigational equipment. We don't have access to rallies, actually. So things were very difficult starting up, finding a bike and everything. But when I found the bike, I knew this is the bike. So having the bike was the first step. I was like, okay, now I have a rally bike. Now I have to do a rally. And luckily, so for years we had a rally here, which was quite big and quite intense, called the Amageza Rally. And unfortunately, the organizer of the Amageza died I think it was a gyrocopter crash. And that opened up the South African rally market. And Garth Roberts from the Kalahari Rally decided he's going to take the plunge. A very, very brave man, because in order to hold a rally, you have to have very strong constitution. And he decided he's always wanted to do a rally. And it coincided so greatly that the Kalahari Rally started just after, or the year after I bought my rally bike. So I could enter the Kalahari Rally. And as to the question, sorry, it's a very long roundabout answer, but what rally means to me is like, up until a point, rally meant something I wanted to do. And then it turned into something I have to do. And I think rally it's one of the most addictive things that you can do. It's almost like a kind of post-traumatic stress. I think I've started calling it post-rally stress, because when you're in it, you hate every second. It is pure hell. Your body, your mind, it is really tough. It is one of the toughest things you'll ever do. And then for the first week, you're in a brain fog. The second week, you think you might never ride a bike again. And then it kind of progresses. And then after 3 months, you're like, I wonder if I'll ever enter a rally again. And then by 4 months, you've entered the next one. And it's just, it's just a wave from there.
Yeah.
A great example is I've got a friend doing the Dakar now, James Alexander, as Moto. And for the guys that doesn't know what Moto is basically you have no support. It's yourself, your bike, and that's it. You're not allowed any outside assistance. And it's the classic way of doing the Dakar. It's in the old spirit of the Dakar. And last night we obviously with WhatsApp, we all have groups and we all have tracking, and James was on the bike yesterday 17 hours. And by that time, the trucks and the cars had come past. It had gotten dark. He had problems with his steering. And it took him hours to do a very short distance. And, it's the whole of South Africa was on his WhatsApp group, literally just willing him on, because he'd made the last cutoff, which meant no matter what time he finishes, he's still in the race. And just to go, looking at it, knowing what torment that guy's going through, you're like, how can you get up tomorrow morning and do another 500-600 Ks? But that's part of it, it's kind of suffering through it. So my passion for that has come from testing your mettle, trying to see if you're good enough, trying to see if you can make it, because I think in today's world, very few of us get a chance to actually do that. You almost have to go and seek it. We seek adventure and we seek new experiences, but it's very rare that you actually seek a breaking point where you say, I want to throw my toys out the cot. I want to have a breakdown. And I've now mellowed it down to I allow myself one breakdown per rally, and I reserve that breakdown for you have to use it strategically. But after, if you have more than one, then you're just whinging. So you're allowed one, and that's it, somewhere along the line.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Everything you're saying is very akin to, some of the other endurance, like the people who do like ultra marathons, and kind of things that are beyond just a standard endurance race. I mean, like triathlons are hard, but I've watched some documentaries about like the people who do like ultra marathons or some of the adventure races and different stuff like that, and it's there's just something there's like another level there for the people who participate in that, because it's exactly what you said, like voluntarily submitting yourself to this trauma or to this experience where it's going to break you. But I think kind of one of the things that I hear coming through in your voice and experience and what you've seen is like beyond that breaking point is where you really find out what you're made of and what kind of person you are, and what kind of rider you are, and I think yeah.
Yeah, and that to me, that's one of the nicest things is people can't. It's what rally does for me is it actually it breaks away or takes away the masks. On the first day, everybody's smiling and friendly, but somebody that's really a cool guy or a cool girl, or somebody that's really friendly, somebody that's friendly after 5 days of extreme hardship, that doesn't snap, that's still smiling, that's always happy, that's always willing to help. And that's why there's almost like a rally fraternity or a rally brotherhood, where if you've gone through that experience with somebody, you're friends for life. And to tie onto that extreme kind of thing with the triathlons and stuff, I did a lot of long distance extreme running, and the difference for me between that of running, say 100 Ks or 120 Ks, is that when you're running, you can switch off. You basically say to your body, all I have to do is suffer through the pain and push on, but as long as my legs keep moving, I'll get to the finish line. Mm-hmm. What makes rally so much more difficult and so much more unique is that, including that, let's say, level of punishment, you cannot switch off your brain, because then you crash or you get lost. So you have to submit your body to, let's call it, extreme hardship, but then you have to keep your mind fresh all the time, because if you don't follow that road book, or if you're going too fast or not looking where you're going, you're either gonna have a crash or get lost, and then you're out of the race. So it's physical.
Or get killed. Yeah.
Or get killed.
Yeah.
it's this physical trauma combined with wearing you down mentally, because at some point you just can't think anymore, and you start dreaming in tulips. So for the listeners out there that doesn't know what on a rally, your road book is divided into two sections on a book or on a roll, and those sections are called tulips, and each tulip gives you the information about the next step you're going to take. And you start speaking the rally language. And a very, very special thing is when you kind of get into the mind of the person that's written the road book, because after 2 or 3 days, you feel like you're starting to know the person who worked out the route, and you can almost anticipate the movements. And then that's when you get into the zone where you can actually start riding and enjoying yourself.
That's amazing. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before, but I mean, it totally makes sense. Like, I'm sure everyone has like a style when they write or compose or, speak or something like that. And so, it's the same thing if you're creating a road book. I'm sure that person has a style, and that's really interesting. It's kind of learning to hear that accent, so to speak, in their writing. Yeah.
And you can immediately, if you get on the bike within the first 5 Ks, you can know, because a lot of the times it's not the same guy. So you would know if you had a road book that 2 stages were worked out by a guy, and then the 3rd stage was done by somebody else. You would immediately know it the next day after 10 Ks, because you'd be like, oh, okay, it just doesn't feel the same. And then you have to kind of get into the new guy's brain, and you have 400, 500, 600 Ks to do that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so let's talk a little bit about like I guess there's definitely a physical toll, but I think there's a time and financial commitment too, to what you're doing, and I think talking about passion and the things that we put effort on. I mean, what have been some of like I guess some of the challenges you said you talked about finding a rally bike. And I guess describe for the listeners, like for those who don't know, the difference between like a rally bike and just a regular dual sport that you'd buy off the showroom floor.
Yeah, cool. So, look, if you go and buy a rally bike, stock standard, very few manufacturers actually make rally bikes. So KTM makes what they call the RFR, which is the Rally Factory Replica. They make about 70, 75 of them a year. And they would set you back, I'm going to lie, but let me just quickly tell you roughly how much. Just want to do a conversion quickly. They're going to set you down about $40,000 if you buy them from the factory, but you have to actually reserve them the year before. So the 2022 bikes or 2021 bikes would already be reserved and paid for. So other than KTM making actual factory rally bikes, most of the other teams like HRC builds rally bikes. So they'll take a base CRF 450 is very common in the US, or a WR, and they'll build a rally bike. And then there's a lot of people that build rally bikes, Rebel Sports and Aurora. But basically what a rally bike comes down to is your navigation tower in the front, which is your heart, your what you call it, your brain stem. It's your central point of everything, because the whole point of a rally is to navigate yourself. So you're on top in the front, you'll have your road book, which gives you your directions, and then you'll have two cap repeaters that gives you the cap distance, a compass heading, your odometer, and your speed, and. So that, let's call it navigation bundle in the front, is the main difference between most normal bikes and rally bikes. And then the main other thing is fuel range, because you need a minimum of normally 250 kilometers of fuel range. Mm-hmm. So you'll have bigger tanks and you'll have auxiliary tanks. But then that brings the challenge of upgraded suspension, because you can't just ride normal suspension with extra weight. So then you have to upgrade the suspension. So it's a whole roller coaster ride. Your seat is very important, because you need a soft seat for those long days. And then you also have some safety equipment, but that depends from rally to rally. So the main things is fuel range and navigation equipment, both that weighs you down. In recent years, there has been a huge, let's call it revival in what they call the rally light scene, which is a way to bring down your bike just to the minimum and move away from the classic rally bike look. And it's something that's been very difficult for me, because I love the classic rally bike look. But rallies internationally, the guys are struggling. They want to get the average speeds down, because the average speeds are too high, and the high speed crashes, you have serious injuries. And in making the stages more technical and more difficult, bigger bikes actually struggle to move around. So, in the 90s, you could go to Dakar on a 990 twin, or any size twin, and it's come down to single cylinder, and then it's come down to 450 eventually. So you're not allowed to competitively race in Dakar with anything bigger than a 450. So they're making the barriers to entry lower, because they want to get the speed down, but they're also making it more technical. So the Rally Light is getting quite a big revival, because all you do is you slap a rally navigation tower on, and there's a great store in the US called Rally Moto Shop, RMS, and they sell all the rally bits that you need, and they've actually developed a Rally Light setup, which is not as expensive as buying a rally bike, and it makes it much more affordable, because then you just need your bike, your navigation equipment, and your fuel range, and you're ready to go. So that's the main difference, and that is the big barrier to entry is to get that bike and then to use it. So many guys build it and then that's where they stop. So the next step is to actually go and enter a race. That's the next hurdle.
Yeah. Yeah, and navigation is one of those things. It's definitely a skill. It's a skill set. I know Austin Vince from Mondo Enduro. I should say the legend Austin Vince, the legendary Austin Vince. He leads usually a couple a year of what do you call it? But basically, it's a map, kind of the same kind of thing, where it's almost like a road book or a map kind of thing. Yeah, and that's kind of cool that because it's like. It combines what you were talking about, like the thrill of the ride. And I mean, in that case, it's not competitive. It's just, it's a group of people. It's for fun, and for the challenge, kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely a skill set to learn for sure. And kind of, it's almost like reading a language, I guess, is what you would, yeah.
It is, and what I sometimes equate it to is that rally riding is almost like treasure hunting or geocaching for big boys, because on your road book and in your rally you've got waypoints, and if the key is to hit all of those waypoints, and if you don't, you get a time penalty, but the challenge is to hit every single waypoint. And there's a lot of the times when you watch Dakar on TV or if you watch rallies, you'll see the trucks and the cars driving around in big circles, and you'd be like, what, are they lost or what? And they looking for waypoints. They're looking to basically clear or hit that waypoint. So basically you're racing around the desert picking up virtual geocaches. That's effectively what you're doing. Yeah. So it's if you start seeing it in that mindset, it's crazy, and you're gutted if you think you get every waypoint, and then you come in at night and you're like, oh, I didn't get that one. You want to go back and get it. So, and the organizers make it tricky to get. They'll put them on top of a hill, I know there's famously, I think it was 2017 Dakar, 2018, they put a waypoint in the middle of a huge dune bowl, and all of the cars and trucks just went down there to get the waypoint, and then they couldn't get back out.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was just this churning pot because the only way they could get out was they couldn't attack the dunes straight up. They had to ride in circles to build up momentum. So it was just this giant from the air, this giant churning whirlpool of cars, trucks, and bikes trying to get out of this dune bowl. So the organizers try and make it difficult for you to go and get those waypoints.
Yeah. Have there been any, like, of the rallies you've done? Because I want to talk about what the rallies you've done and then what you have coming up, because I know there's some exciting stuff coming up for you. But out of the rallies you've done, is there like maybe one moment that is kind of like a defining moment for you of where, I don't know, I guess you would say if you didn't have the passion, you just would have like hung up your boots or whatever and just walked away from it. Is there any kind of moment like that you can think of?
I think probably when I did my first race, the idea was I bought the bike and I said, okay, look, if I'm for me, going to Dakar is a lifelong commitment. Most people can decide, look, I'm going to go to Dakar, and they're going to use all of their savings, all of their energy, and they're going to go. And that happens a lot. I looked at it as like, look, I'm a normal guy. I don't have that amount of money. I'm going to have to, this needs to be, for a lot of people, Dakar is the start of their rally racing career. I want it to be, I wouldn't say my end, but that's my goal that I'm working towards. So for me, I was like, okay, if I'm going to commit the next 5 years of my life and all the money that I make to a single goal, I need to make sure I want to do it. I can't 3 years in say, I don't like this anymore. I need to commit. So doing the first rally, I was completely green. I had no idea what to do as far as navigation is concerned. It was something crazy about, like, I didn't even know that you had to, or how you could use the waypoints to your advantage, or how you could see them on your GPS. I knew the basics, but that was it. And it's one of the challenges of rally. There's not enough readily available information out there so that you can actually prepare yourself for an event, which was one of the challenges I had starting out. But anyway, so I was doing this thing, and the Kalahari Rally is going to go down in history as you get some iconic rallies, and this is going to become an iconic rally simply because of how tough it is. But because it was your first race and your first rally, I couldn't say this is a tough rally, because I had nothing to measure it against. And it was a fight for survival. But I mean, I did every day. So I love listening to people. I love stories, and I love getting advice. So one of the best advice I got from somebody was, you just have to get to the finish line every night, and if that's too much for you, you just have to get to the start line the next morning. That's all. You just have to keep on chugging. So I literally just chugged through that race, and I ended up doing relatively well. I think I came 7th overall, which for me was a big thing. But at the end of it, I was just like, oh, this was not fun. This was hard. I mean, I had thorns. I mean, everything. My bike was destroyed. Rallies are extremely, and this bike was my pride and joy. And I look at it, and it's destroyed. Yeah. My gear, I bought brand new, rookie mistake. I bought a brand new rally kit, a jacket, pants. It was completely destroyed. I mean, so I was like, okay. And then that night, it was actually towards the end of the evening, we chatted, and there were some guys there that has done quite a lot of Dakars, especially the car guys. And the Kalahari is unique not unique, but the cars take off before the bikes in the Kalahari Rally, which doesn't happen very often, but it's just because we're a small enough number. If you've got 100 cars, it's a different story. If you've got 10 cars, it's actually easier because you don't have the cars chasing you. And on the last day, my speed got to the point that I actually caught some of the cars, which was great. And the cars were lost, and I knew I was going right. So the car stopped by me. He's like, "Where are you now?" And I was like, "I'm on Tulip so-and-so." And they just, like, the cars don't care about bushes or anything or trees. They just go in a straight line. Zip. So this car I put them on their course, and they just went, and I never saw them again. But I felt like, oh, wow, I caught them. And that night I went to sit and chat with the guys, and they had both done 3 or 4 Dakars, and they were just like, "Look, this is way tougher than Dakar." And I was like, okay, this was worth it. If I can do this, I can do Dakar. And I think, to me, that was one of those defining moments that, okay, if I can get through this, then I can it's a goal I can work towards, and it can be something that I want to do. Yeah. And I think that was kind of, that carried on. It's like, okay, I'm going to take a break. You have to. I mean, my ass was literally destroyed. I mean, it was broken. I couldn't sit on it for weeks. But again, it's a learning curve. Now I know to take something with me for the liaisons. I know to use the right cream. I know to stand and not to sit. So you learn all of those things the hard way. But that's part of the journey.
Yeah. That's amazing. So you mentioned the Dakar and kind of being your goal. How close are you to that goal now, getting to ride it yourself?
The honest answer is I have no idea. I looked at it, and I like to look at things analytically, and I see so many people attempt to get to Dakar and just never go. And you can speak to anybody. The hardest part of getting to Dakar is getting there. The rally is the reward. And in my estimation, in the group of people that I move, which is South African people, it takes you, I feel, on average 5 years to get there. That is my assessment. I don't know how factual that is, but that's how I see it. And then I looked at what it costs, and to be honest, you could probably retire on what it costs you if you're all in. You can't just look at the entry fee. It's the qualifying races, it's the traveling, it's the bike, it's the practice, the training for at least a year before the time, all of that. And that's not to finish on the podium, that's just to finish. It's just to get through the Dakar. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, if somebody were to give me this lump sum of money today, would I go and do Dakar? And what I realized is that what I'm in love with is rally, and also the people, the camaraderie, and the in Afrikaans we have a saying called vastbyt, which is bite fast, like grit, hold on. You just keep it, you lock your jaws and you don't let go, kind of thing. It's called vastbyt, and that concept is so enthralling to me that it's like, would I take that money and do it once and then it's done? I mean, if I've done Dakar, I've done it. Or would I take that money and say, okay, I can do 5, 6, 7, 10 other rallies around the world for that money over a period of 5 years, gain experience, and actually become part of the rally fiber versus just doing a race. So while Dakar is definitely my Everest, it's where I want to end up. And I'll definitely not opposed to going if I get the means to go. My immediate goal is to experience as much as I can, so that when the opportunity arises to go to Dakar, I'm actually so well prepared and so experienced that it's not so intimidating. Because the sheer scale of Dakar is so intimidating. I mean, it's an entire city that moves every day, and nobody cares. It's not an event where you get to and people hold your hand. If you're not at your start time, that's it. There's nobody. It's a very, very crazy event. So you want to go there with the confidence that you can do it. So I might be a year off, I might be 5 years off, but it's there. It's in my stars. I also feel that in the Dakar spirit, I'm not a big fan of a one country race because of the cost. If I want to go and do a one country race for the cost of the entry of Dakar, I don't think it's worth it. But also I very strongly feel that it's not in line with the, let's call it the ethos of Dakar, the spirit of rally and the spirit of adventure. For me, the Dakar needs to traverse countries. I want to go over borders. So when there is very serious talk that Oman and Jordan will join the Dakar route, which I'm really hoping for, because all of a sudden it will make it much more interesting. But definitely before Dakar, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Africa Eco Race. It is a race that's still held every year on the 1st of January on the old Dakar route. The only difference is it now starts in Monte Carlo and not in Paris. And it's run by a Frenchman called Jean-Louis Schlecher. And the Africa Eco Race is huge. I mean, it's a massive rally, and it's the Dakar of old. They're just not allowed to call it Dakar, so it's the Africa Eco Race. And they go from Europe through Morocco, through Mauritania, and they finish at Plage Blanche in Dakar. So it's the old Dakar. And I would definitely go and do that sooner rather than later. But because Dakar is Dakar and the biggest, toughest off-road race in the world, you have to do it. You have to get there. So whether it's in Saudi or South America, you have to end up getting there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, cool. Well, thank you, Willem, for taking the time to chat. If people want to follow along with you, do you have anywhere online where people can, see pictures or whatever, keep up with you?
Definitely, I'd really appreciate it. Any support, any follows really helps. Every little bit helps, and I really love to share my passion and to show people definitely behind the scenes what's going on. So definitely from the privateer perspective. So in that regards, I'm on Instagram as Willem Avenant. I'm sure we can put the links in the bio, in the description. Facebook also Willem Avenant, and then I've got a website, Willem Avenant Racing. So yeah.
Awesome.
And then for all of you guys in the US, I don't know how closely you're following the Dakar, but for a friend of mine, Skylar House, which I met at Sonora, is doing very, very well. So if you guys can give him a cheer on, he's got a very good chance on the podium if he keeps on doing what he's doing. So if he gets on the podium, it'll be great for America, because then you'll have 2 podiums in 2 years on Dakar, and I don't think that's happened. So
it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah. So very cool. Well, thank you, Willem, and I hope we get to to ride together someday, hopefully in a rally. You got me stoked about like checking out a rally now. Like I'm gonna start looking at rally bikes or learning how to read. I need to learn how to read the road map, the road book first. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely, our big goal at the moment is that we're heading to Morocco in April. So the Morocco Desert Challenge is our big one, and that's actually currently the second biggest rally in the world. It's a tiny bit smaller than Dakar, but the size of the rally is the same, as big as Dakar. So that's pretty cool. We're very excited, COVID willing, that we can get there, because we've had 3 rallies cancelled in the last year, which was sad.
Yeah.
So I actually haven't done a rally in a year. And then if you're down there, I mean, Sonora, even if you go down to Sonora just to check it out, the people are friendly. The food is the best food you will ever get on a rally is at the Sonora rally. And just for the experience of going to check it out and then the next year doing it, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But I'm sure we'll still meet in the future, and we can go on a bit of a roadbook ride.
That'd be awesome. All right, thanks, Willem. See you down the road.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I'm so glad that you got to meet Willem and see a Dakar rider in the making. It's one of his dreams. It's on his bucket list. If you want to follow Willem, go to Willem Avenant Racing on Instagram, and you'll see a lot of his pictures. I actually have it up right now. I'm looking at it, and he calls it his Road to Dakar, and has a lot of pictures from the Moroccan Desert Challenge, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, really good stuff. So now let's go to Saudi Arabia. So specifically the Dakar. So that if you're not familiar with the Dakar Rally, it's a 14-day rally race in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia. It used to be in Africa, and then it was in South America for a while, and now it's in Saudi Arabia. And so our co-managing editors, Justin and Kira, sat down with David Knight, who's a 5-time world enduro champion, who's currently racing the Dakar for his first time. And this has been a bucket list item for him as well. And so they sit down with him at the bivouac in the middle of the desert. So you're going to hear lots of noises. I think there's like it looked like some kind of water, like maybe a poop pump truck, look like a septic truck, kind of interrupts in the middle there. But it's a bivouac, so people are working on bikes, working on cars, it's the end of the day, and so people are gearing up for the next day. So it's going to be a little noisy, so I apologize for that. But just know it's because they're in the middle of the Dakar Rally bivouac, which is pretty amazing. But even more amazing, I'm excited for you to get to meet David Knight.
Hi, I'm David Knight, and I'm a 5-time World Enduro Champion and 4-time AMA National Champion. As a kid, that's all I know is motorbikes. From, as long as I can remember, I was absolute, motorsport freak in general. My dad rode trials. I come from the Isle of Man, which is obviously massive on the TT, on motorcycling. So I just, from as long as I can remember, I just remember the TT. My birthday's in TT week. Like, I think Mike Halewood won the 78 TT on the Ducati. It was either the day before I was born or the day I was born. It was within a couple of days anyway. And my dad, he actually bought a Mike Halewood replica Ducati. That's the only thing that he ever sort of wanted. That was his pride and joy, and he got one. And my dad, he passed away in 2005. So that bike's fully restored now. We use it, and it's like, it's mine and my brother's pride and joy now. So yeah, so that's like, so I was born 78 TT week, and then my dad trials rider, my brother got into trials, he's about 4 years older than me, and then basically just grew up to the schoolboy trials ranks. I was obsessed with it from an early age. Like, I had a really strong will to win at everything, on bicycles, running races, you name it. I think that came from my mum. My dad was the complete opposite. He was like, he was not uncompetitive, but he wasn't bothered as long as he was having fun with his mates riding. And he was like that. And my brother was exactly the same. Probably one of the most naturally talented riders I've ever came across, but just happy mechanicking. You know, he's got his own shop, fixes bikes, restores old bikes, and that's his passion. You know, but mine was racing and winning. It is. So yeah, just grew up to the schoolboy trials, and then I always thought I was going to end up as a TT rider, because the Isle of Man just, you know, when we were growing up, me and all my friends would be on BMXs pretending we were TT riders and racing around the housing estates, and you know, we'd have flipping road race helmets on with visors, just such a good childhood growing up with, you know, just dreaming of being a world champion. And I remember school teachers saying to me, like, you know, you need to think about what you're going to do properly, because this is like a fantasy. And yeah, and I don't know, I've always just believed that if I wanted to do something, I could do it. And so yeah, trials career went good, you know. I won British Championship trials in '96, but wanted to make World Championship. It was like a big jump, and I was like, my brother had started racing Enduro, and to me it looked a lot more fun. You know, I always had that speed that I wanted to. Even in trials, used to race around on a trials bike pretending I was doing Enduros, and so I had an old bike, like actually I swapped it for a bicycle, an XL 185 Honda, and I used to do like local motocross and trials on this, because all my money went into the trials riding. So I had this old XL, and I was like doing motocross on it, snapped the frame in half and welded it up, and then I got like an old CR250, which was obviously a lot faster and a lot better, but it was still old. And then, like 1997, I was sort of just getting a little bit fed up with the trials. It was a sort of, to go professional would have been a big commitment, and in all honesty, I don't know if I would have been able to make it. So I thought, right, I'm going to do Enduros properly. So I got into Enduros on a Yamaha, and then almost won the British Enduro Championship my first season. I didn't finish one of the races, just like, actually it was a flash flood and a load of bikes got swept down the river, and one of the guys' bike, they found it like 10k down the river the next day, or 2-3 days later. My bike got a load of water in, so anyway, I ended up second that year. I did a couple of junior world enduro championship races and won. So that was the start of the enduro thing. I was like, straight away I was going to wait a little bit.
I don't know. Just so that people can see what we're doing in here.
Welcome to Dakar.
Right. Yeah, there's an unending barrage of random loud noises.
I think over time, like, I still love my enduros. I love me hard enduros, and I'm gonna definitely look at doing some more of them this year. But the rally thing, you know, I got KTM offered me a ride a couple of times in, I think, like 08, 10, something like that. But I was happy with what I was doing. I was busy with the enduro stuff, so. But it's always been in my head, you know, the Dakar. Since I was a kid, I've been dreaming of, you know, when you see the deserts and stuff, and you're like, whoa, Dad, I'd love to go and ride there, and you know, and that's how I am with any event that I see. I'm like, I just want to ride a bike there, you know. You see these, you go back to basics. You're like a kid, oh, whoa, I want to ride my bike there, I want to ride my bike there, and and that's how it is still with me, you know. I just absolutely love riding motorbikes, and the adventure aspect of this really appealed to me. You know, forget I've won 5 world titles and I've won GNCC and all this stuff. I just wanted to come and race the Dakar Rally, me and the bike and the terrain, back to basics. And you know, I just love it. I just, you know, I've come into it. I'm trying to rein myself back every day because I just want to get to the finish line. You know, it's 13 long stages. It's blooming tough. Mentally, it's really tough. But I'm just trying to really enjoy each day as it happens. And yeah, you get frustrated when you get lost and you're riding around in circles, and you know, but everyone's just so friendly. Everyone's like riding together, you're like a bunch of mates, and it's beautiful. So yeah, so far I've been absolutely loving it.
A new season.
So that wraps up this episode 7 of the ADVMoto podcast. If you want to see more of David's stuff and updates, so as this episode goes live, it'll probably be right at the end of the Dakar Rally. So that'll probably be over by when this episode goes live. But if you want to check out just kind of post-race analysis or even see pictures from the whole rally, just go to his website. It's Knighter.com. So like the medieval knight, KNIGHTER.com. And also the Dakar Rally did a really cool rider profile on David on their YouTube channel. So I'll post that link in the show notes. And there's always show notes. So if you go to youtube.com, if you're listening to the audio version of this, there's a video version of this. And if you go to YouTube, the show notes are there. And they're also in the podcast version too, if you have access to that via wherever you download it. So that wraps up this episode. It's going to be a great 2021. I'm excited. I got some really cool guests and stuff lined up for this year, which I'm really excited to share with you. So it's going to be a great 2021. If you ever want to reach out to the podcast, send a picture of where you're listening to the podcast or watching from, or even where you're riding, you can always reach out to us at podcast@adventuremotorcycle.com. And over on adventuremotorcycle.com, you'll see the print magazine, and you can also subscribe to a digital version of that as well. And there's a lot of good articles and updates over there. So thank you again for tuning in. And yeah, I'm excited for 2021. See you down the road.
Right now.